Hi, welcome back. I'm Ashley Vargas, the Deputy Division Director for the Extramural Research and Training Division at NIEHS. And it is now my great pleasure to hand the microphone over to Dr. Trevor Archer, Deputy Director of NIEHS, to talk about our environmental justice activities at NIEHS. Trevor?
Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to make an effort to share my screen and see how that works. Can you see this screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you. For the next approximately 30 minutes, I'll try to give you an update on the various activities that we've heard that we have ongoing at NIEHS in the area of environmental justice and health disparities. So as I mentioned, and as you've seen this slide previously, it really illustrates that as we establish the priorities of NIEHS, as Dr. Wojcik has indicated through our strategic planning process, one of the major areas that we have been interested in and remain interested in is environmental justice and health disparities. I'm sorry, let's move this back. And so there are many definitions of health disparities rather than environmental justice. And one of the ones that I think is a good one to think about is the one that the EPA uses about the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And really, this gets to the heart of the approach that has been at NIEHS for many years, including trying to understand the real role that environmental justice and health disparities play in the life of the nation. And so NIEHS, as I'm sure most of you are aware, has a really long and I think a laudable history in supporting community engaged research, developing programs that promote both health and health equity as well as environmental justice. And these have been largely through our grant supporting programs. As you might expect, this is the major expenditures that we have to support our research. But we've also worked diligently over the years to establish an environmental health disparities and environmental justice faculty, which brings together research scientists in the division of the extramural training program, the intramural programs, DIR and DTT, as well as those of us in the Office of the Director to provide support and promote environmental justice. And this is recognized in one part by our recent suggestion or requests that we lead a newly established Trans NIH Environmental Justice working group to try to bring this focus of environmental justice, which has been at NIEHS for a number of years, more broadly to the larger NIH community. And so what I'll do over the next few slides is really both remind you of some of the things that we have been doing, as well as illustrate some of the new things and new areas where we are placing our attention and resources to promote environmental justice. And so NIEHS has for many years, as I've indicated before, really prioritized environmental justice and environmental health disparities research. This involves working with communities and really trying to develop what we call multi-directional communication. So rather than thinking of us as the ones with all the answers and the information, we're really trying to work with our communities to get an understanding of what's really important to them. What are the things that affects the lives of our fellow community members? We've also tried to promote training and education across broad spectrums of the broader environmental health sciences community across the nation. This has involved our efforts to develop really extensive community engaged research programs. I think it's one of the foundations of NIEHS and an approach that is being more broadly implemented across NIH is to have a really fully engaged community. You'll hear a little bit more about that as we talk about some of the community engagement networks and centers that we produce. We've also been very important at NIHS in not only supporting but conducting fundamental research in our intramural program to try to address environmental health justice, as well as building community awareness, resiliency, action, and collaborations across the various programs. And we also, of course, tried, as you'll see, and an example that Dr. Wojcik shared earlier, is to function from essentially the bully pulpit. Can we, as NIEHS, given our support of this area of research, coordinate and convene others within the national, local, and communities to promote environmental justice? So one of the things, as I mentioned, is that we know that working with the community to develop environmental health research is incredibly valuable. It allows us to build trust. It inspires the next generation of young scientists and community members. It allows us to raise environmental health literacy so that people have a better understanding of how the environment affects their health, the things that they can do to address that, the things they need to avoid. It builds us capacity so that we can draw upon this broader knowledge. It also allows us to inform health protective policies that the government is engaged in. But this work is really critical for us to do. And because it's critical, it's not easy. And so it requires us to commit both time, listening. We have to commit resources. We also have to approach the engagement in a way that respects local knowledge, culture, and languages. So we also want to be, as we try to promote the various scientific disciplines and activities we have, an understanding of humility and authenticity so that these proposals, which can be collaboratively built, will be most successful as we try to move forward. I think we've been able to do this in large part because of the broad spectrum of activities that we have done. And at NIEHS, we have tried to utilize, really multiple programs that address EHD and EJ priorities. These include our research to action programs, which allows our partners to work together to address issues that have developed by the community, questions that they raise, and an approach that we think has been very successful. We've used this and added to it through our centers programs. And one of the, again, unique features about the centers programs that the NIEHS supports has been this commitment to community engagement, allowing us to build in research translation and capacity building. These include things such as environmental health disparities and research centers, our Superfund research program, which you heard about again in Dr. Wojcik's presentation, our ability to build a variety of environmental health sciences core centers, the Children Environmental Health Research and Translation Centers, as well as our Oceans and Human Health programs. All of these various center programs provide a way for us both to provide, to conduct cutting edge research, but also to engage with members of the community to build there going forward. We also, of course, as you're aware, and again, as alluded to David just recently, there is the Partnership for Environmental Public Health, the PEPH, which is a multidisciplinary network of partners, and I'll say a bit more about that in a subsequent slide. So I want to highlight one of the ways that we have really tried to engage with the community. And this is our efforts in what is we refer to as the Women Health Awareness Community Engagement Program. This program, which aims to transform the communities by enhancing women's health, really conducts community engaged research that advocates for and educates the intersecting issues of environmental health disparities, resiliency, health equity, environmental and social justice. This is a conference which will be celebrating 10 years. It was established about in 2014, and it really has engaged a significant level of community participation, involving more than 6,000 minority and underserved members in 54 urban and rural North Carolina counties, and also involved the participation of individuals from more than 41 states. The program, in addition to providing the support for the community, it also conducts research. It's involved in a study called the WHA REACH Equity Study, which really tries to build upon an understanding of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and focuses on the factors that contribute to adverse health outcomes of women's health awareness population. And so this has been a really, it's an ongoing and successful program. I also want to highlight the contributions that Dr. Joan Packingham has made to this process. In fact, we can credit Joan with the original conception and leadership over the last 10 years of taking this program from an initial very small one to one at the extent that I indicated earlier. I also want to bring to your attention that this 10th anniversary will happen on Saturday, April 13th, from about 8 to 5. And it includes a number of things involving health screenings, educational sessions, healthy living sessions, as well as acquainting the community with resources. The registration is free, and it starts, rather will end on March 15th. We'll also allow for people to participate as they come. And the URL shown on the right part of the slide will give you more information. In addition to the main or central feature that will occur at the Hillside High Auditorium in Durham, there are 2 additional satellite sites representing the scope and the breadth of this opportunity that Dr. Packingham, with support from the clinical research branch and clinical director, Dr. Jan Hall, as well as the scientific director, Dr. Darryl Zeldin, and the office of the director, Dr. Wojcik, by providing support for both Dr. Packingham and the various and broad number of staff members who participate in this process. We've also, as again indicated, and I think you, the council, is well aware, we have a tremendously successful worker training program that's part of the Superfund program. This provides a training program for the hazardous waste and hazmat disaster training, and it gives workers in the communities and others the ability to respond to hazardous materials, spills, waste, and emergency response activities such as hurricane and floods, and also, for example, the recent train derailment in East Palestine. In addition, there is the Environmental Career Worker Training Program, which really has a focus on changing the lives and build careers through job and life training skills for mentoring and social support. This is a program, since its inception, has really had an amazing return on investment. And this allows us to really make a case, which I think is that building and working with community, working on environmental issues is both good for public health, but it's good economic activity as well, such that an independent analysis has suggested that has been a return of more than $118 million on a $33.5 million annual investment for this program. And so this, we think, is really a terrific example of how NAEHS works and builds with the community. I also want to mention that NAEHS, as you are probably aware, is very committed to conducting fundamental research in the area of environmental health sciences. And this allows us to address health disparities and advance environmental justice. So for decades, the NIHS has continued to diversify its intramural biomedical reach portfolio to address these areas. A couple of the examples are that we have had long-going activities. The work led in part by our Darlene Dixon and Donna Beard at NIEHS involves studies on uterine fibroids, the self-study. And then we've also were able to recruit successfully Dr. Chandra Jackson into the epidemiology branch to lead the social and environmental determinants of health equity group. And this is a group that really has put NIEHS in the forefront in understanding how the contribution of both neighborhood, housing, and work conditions can affect sleep health, which is really important for understanding a number of cardiometabolic dysfunctional conditions that affect disproportionately minority and rural communities with respect to obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And also NIEHS has been a participant with the Carolinas Blood Bank at Duke University, which allows us a collection of cord blood samples, and is something that I think one anticipates in a longer term would be able to contribute to some of the focus that we have on the exposome by providing an understanding of the pre-birth exposures that individuals in the community have as we go through their subsequent development in their health profiles. We have also been very active and trying to promote NIEHS as what we refer to as a coordinator and a convener. And so NIEHS has a long and successful history of going to the community, going to the places where there are requirements, there are issues that are raised about the environmental features, and these include, as shown in a few pictures at the bottom here, going out to places such as New Mexico, Texas, but also locally, including in Burlington. And this allows us to bring together both government health officials, community health professionals, as well as a diverse group of advocacy groups. Now, I'll go very briefly on the next couple of slides because Dr. Wojcik has touched upon this. We were able to bring together last November a group of community activists and federal and local members of the environmental justice community to what we refer to as an Environmental Justice Action Forum. And the reason this was an action forum, because as you can see in the text, there have been over 2 years of engaging and collaborating with our environmental justice community partners. We really were happy to bring together what was referred to as an all-government approach. This allowed the local community, and this is really important, to frame and address the environmental justice issues regarding the Western Electric Tar Heel Army-based missile plant in Burlington. And what you see in the slide is a picture of some of us who were involved in that. And I'll draw out particularly the work done by Joan Packingham, Sharon Baird, Liam O'Fallon, Darlene Dixon, Serena Silvera, as well as members of the community in putting together a program. And this program had the feature of having what I first heard Sharon Baird refer to as an all-of-government approach. And this involves bringing together members of the federal government, including NIEHS, the state government, local government in the county, and as well as community members such as the West End Revitalization Association of WERA, the Seven Directions of Service, and the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation Indian Tribe, as well as the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network and community members. And so meeting together in Mebane in the shadow of the Western Electric, our site, we were able to identify a set of goals for this environmental forum. These included in identifying the issues. We wanted to facilitate collaboration between key partners. We also wanted to try to develop solutions to mitigate environmental disparities and restore and revitalize the community. Because as our director is fond of saying, communities don't want us just to study their problems. They want us to help them solve their problems. And so these sessions were designed to facilitate this approach by engaging the federal agencies, looking at roles and responsibilities, as well as the next steps. And so we're able to put together from this meeting a really detailed set of future plans, which involved commitments from broadly the NIEHS, from the Army, the EPA, the North Carolina State Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the White House Council on Environmental Quality and the Economic Development of the City of Burlington. And by bringing together members of HHS and the White House, as well as the Army, we think we were able to devise a set of actions. And particularly, I'll focus, and again, as Rick has mentioned, the Army, to be frank, having not been engaged in this process, made a commitment to establish a restoration advisory board in 2024. In fact, as Rick showed you earlier, they've actually gone better than establishing this board. They've actually proposed and begun to do the work. And so we're really excited about this. And I won't go over it because, again, you heard about it earlier, but we think this represents a tangible success of our ability to bring together a set of stakeholders and address a tractable problem that has been affecting community for many years. This is in some ways really symbolic of the kinds of things that we have been engaged with for a broad spectrum of time. These include, as I mentioned, our Partners for Environmental Public Health, or PEPH, our ability to create the research to action programs, as well as our funded centers that I indicated. And I'll just take a few minutes to go over the Partners for Environmental Health, because as David indicated, shown on the bottom right portion of the slide here, what you can see is that we will have a meeting, the network meeting, which will happen in about actually next week, and it will occur in building 101 here at NIHS, where we would normally have our council meeting. And this will bring together our partners. And what the PEPH has a number of goals. These includes to coordinate and interrogate new and existing initiatives that involve communities and scientists collaborating on environmental public health research. Want to develop and evaluate strategies to communicate environmental public health messages to diverse audiences, to make sure that we actually have the broad reach within the community that we're seeking. And they also want to be able to create and distribute materials to increase awareness and literacy about environmental health risks. So I would encourage all of you, there's a URL listed at the bottom of the slide here. This will be an in-person meeting. Actually, will be the first in-person meeting since 2020, I think, which will allow us to come together and really focus on climate change and environmental justice by engaging diverse teams. As I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that NIEHS has sought to promote environmental justice and health disparities research is by establishing focus groups. And we were able to bring together a NIHS-wide, what we call faculty, that are important members of the community with a focus on environmental racism, environmental health disparities, and justice. These include members from the Division of Translational Toxicology, Division of Intramural Research, as well as the Extramural Research and Training. And working together, this group has really tried to foster integration of multiple disciplines to study these various important issues. It is important, and I can't stress this enough, these are this is a self-assembled group of individuals with a passionate commitment to environmental justice and working within the framework of their regular either research supporting positions, build and attempted and have over the years raised the profile of this research area within NIEHS and more broadly, including writing a number of important commentaries that illustrate the significance of this issue. We have been able to, through this leadership, I think, promote across the whole NIH the importance of environmental justice and health and environmental health disparities. This leadership that NIEHS has shown over the years, I think, is instrumental in the next area that I'd like to talk to you about. And again, Rick indicated to you earlier that last year, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary Becerra, requested that all NHHS operating divisions identify a leader and focus on priorities to address environmental justice activities or priorities. And I think it's not surprising that NIEHS was selected for this, given our history. And it's important to recognize that the reason I was chosen to lead this was not for any particular skills on my part, but really to reflect the deep well of commitment that NIEHS leadership and faculty have shown over the years in promoting environmental justice. Consequently, I was able to draw upon very quickly a group of very talented individuals, including Sharon Baird, Liam O'Fallon, Dr. Lindsay Martin, Dr. Melissa Smar, and Serena Silvera, to create a framework for us to address this proposal from HHS that we develop these strategic initiatives or transformative ideas on environmental justice. As David indicated, sadly for us, with respect to NIHS, Dr. Melissa Smar is now at the NCI, but her commitment to this process remains. And so we're very grateful for all the work that Melissa did in this area for us. Importantly, this is a trans NIH initiative. And so we were able to bring together 18 individual centers and research institutes across NIH indicated on this slide, and have the participation of more than 70 individuals in a series of meetings that allowed us to flesh out, crowdsource, build ideas, and eventually settle on the 3 areas that I'll talk to you about a little bit more detail over the next slide. And so these are the 3 areas that we decided on, which is that NIH would provide and focus attention on 3 areas that include the Centers for Excellence in Environmental Health Disparities. We would reimagine these in collaboration with the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities going forward. We will create an environmental justice scholars network using the exciting framework developed by the Climate and Human Health Scholars Program. In addition, we would build upon our experience, a very successful experience with the Worker Training Program to build an environmental justice training program. And so we sent out a request for information that really had the working group, instead of simply being NIHS, but this broad NIH working group to request feedback on approaches that we could take to support research capacity building efforts to advance environmental justice in the US. And we're of course very cognizant of the fact that as part of the Biden administration's commitment to environmental justice, the Justice 40 program that many of you are familiar with, this is the idea that all of the federal government would commit 40% of their budget in areas that are relevant to environmental justice. And we also thought that this would allow us, by soliciting broadly, our ability to synergize our efforts with the efforts of other federal agencies that were doing similar approaches. And so we're able to see more than 41 responses to this RFI, and we're using those and building upon those, because while I will present to you 3 ideas that we are focusing with or leading with, these are 3 ideas we are leading with. They're not the totality of the activity that we want to be engaged in as we move forward by promoting environmental justice. And so the first, to go in a little bit more detail, is this renewal of the Environmental Health Disparities Centers. This is a program that is co-led by NIHD, NIHS, and NICHD, and we currently support 3 centers. The idea is to renew this with a focus on environmental justice and grow the program with additional ICO support for moving forward. We want to develop multi-level and structural level interactions, implement research to develop test strategies to promote the uptake and indeed the scale up and spread of evidence-based interventions, and be a model for the evaluation of interaction or cumulative risks of chemical, physical, biological stresses with the different social determinants of health and chronic diseases. Shown below is the process. The NIMHD Council had this concept and approved it earlier in this month. There'll be an RFA that will come out in May of June. Hopefully it will be reviewed and approved early, about a year from now. And the estimated start date we would look for is April 1st in 2025, allowing us to meet the 18-month timeline that we were presented with. We're also, as I mentioned, and I think as Rick indicated earlier, we are going to build upon the Environmental Justice Scholar program. And the idea here is to bring to NIH scholars who have a diverse expertise and knowledge of environmental justice. Because one of the things that we recognize is while we have broad experience and expertise at NIH, we will also benefit from having an even larger and more broad and comprehensive uh, exposure to the various thinking and ideas that about environmental justice. And so the idea is that these scholars will work with NIH staff across a range of environmental justice issues, and they will support them as they come to visit NIH, engage in education and training, public engagement, as well as research and data collection and analysis. And our proposal that we will present to the institute and center directors in the coming months will be to have a program that would approximately 10 scholars for each year. And we've been really quite importantly supported and building upon the work from the climate change and health scholars program that already exists. The third aim that we're proposing involves building upon this environmental justice training program. And this is a very simple goal, which is to establish a new environmental justice training program for communities, workers, researchers, healthcare and public care officials, and policymakers. The idea is to build capacity within communities, train researchers so that they have a better understanding of environmental justice. And I think you can see the synergism between the scholars program that we have and the program that we'll have on training community members. And so as this program goes forward, it'll have two main focus areas. One will be on the NIH and its staff and researchers, and the other is providing to communities. And it'll be co-led by Sharon Baird at NIHS and Nadra Tires at the NIH Office of the Director. So we're really excited about what NIHS has done in the past, and also what we think we'll be able to do in the future. And we're also really excited as we take what has been and remains to be a strategic priority area at NIH, environmental justice and health disparities, and bring this into a trends on NIH framework so that we can expand the capacity. Because as you know, NIH is a much larger enterprise, has a broader reach than NIHS, but we think that we're able to significantly lead and help lead our colleagues as we continue to make environmental justice a central feature in the work that we do. And so with that, I'll thank you and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Trevor. We got about 10 minutes before you have to hop off. I think Patricia's first.
Thank you, Trevor. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I had a question. I'm going to be traveling to Navajo Nation next week to discuss for the very first time in a public setting the impact of forced relocation that happened to thousands of, over probably 15,000 Navajos from 1972 just recently. I'm just wondering, like, in terms of research, there's literally nothing been done in that capacity in that area. So I'm just wondering if the Institute has done any type of work in that area when it comes to forced relocation of people.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm not aware that we've done, and David and my other colleagues are maybe more familiar with that. But one of the things that we are hoping to do, within this program is, in fact, to take, from the community's identification of important areas that may not have been previously evaluated or studied, and find ways that we can make contributions. Because as I indicated, the expectation here is that this will be a multi-directional approach, and so we would want to get and be happy to take input. And so I'd personally be very interested to hear more about what you're thinking. I have some individual knowledge about this, but I think in terms of a systematic approach that we might take as an institution, it's something which I think would be really important for us to know more about.
Just to follow up, I had a call with my grandfather last week over the weekend, and he mentioned that our families used to plant during this time, and right before relocation, huge gardens, right? And corn was one of the main crops. So corn is used for our spiritual ways of living, including the pollen itself specifically. So when forced relocation happened, all that got destroyed. And so more like the spiritual impact and how that's impacting the Navajo Nation for those that have been relocated specifically, and just mental health, of course. So just overall health. So I'm just
Yeah.
kind of curious about it. All right,
No,
thank
and
you.
absolutely. I think that would dovetail very nicely with, I think the greater appreciation that we have for the importance of psychosocial stress that impacts our health. And we know in an area that's relevant to my own individual research that there are epigenetic and epitranscriptomic consequences of those kinds of stresses. And so trying to incorporate that particular specific example into the kind of work that we hope that we'll be supporting through this initiative would be entirely appropriate.
Thanks for sharing, Patricia. Other comments, questions? I don't know, Liam and Sharon, if you had additions to add to what Trevor said.
So, Patricia, thank you very much for bringing up this issue. I think that Indigenous knowledge is certainly a critical element to it. That there has been sort of the larger discussion of historical trauma, but not necessarily the conversation about forced relocation and the importance of place in terms of both mental, physical health, and overall well-being. So, thanks again for bringing it back to environmental health disparities and environmental justice.
Thanks,
Actually, I
Liam.
do concur with Liam in regards to this. And one of the things that we are looking at, of course, in our environmental justice training program is looking at some of those mental health and cultural competency issues that impact, and really talk about how do we incorporate that into the work that we do here at NIH. For example, a lot of the funding that we're now getting to support some of the work at the Women's Health Awareness is through the Office of Disease Prevention and looking at mental health and environmental justice. And so this is something that we can look at expanding that model to see if we can actually provide additional funding to look at these types of impacts and utilize the other programs and initiatives at NIH to support these types of activities. So certainly something we should look at exploring.
Thanks, Sharon. And I'll just add in the nutritional sciences field, we are now, I think, finally looking at the role of food in Indigenous health beyond just the nutrients and the sustenance there and the spiritual value and the changes that have happened because of a myriad of things. And so I think nutrition science is also trying to move forward in that direction. I see Andrew. Andrew, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes. Yeah, oh, my camera's moved around. I want to thank Trevor for a really tremendous presentation. At the previous meeting, I think you had about a week's preparation and pulled together some short notes. This time you really presented the full breadth of the NAEHS activities that have been addressing this, as you said, for a very, very long time. It was particularly interesting to see the program on women's health and how NIEHS and NIH is able to pull together both the research and the clinical and public health opportunities. That's a really striking example that I would love to have us think about, and perhaps here at EPA we could work across offices and with groups like ATSDR and the pediatric specialty center, environmental health specialty centers to work on. I will put in the chat access, or I think I just put access to this link. We've got a cumulative impacts research grantee workshop. Over the last couple of years, EPA has given out quite a few grants on cumulative impacts from all perspectives, including early life stage vulnerability, cumulative impacts at the intersection of climate change, actually how this impacts rural agricultural communities, and just looking at environmental health disparities. So this is a public meeting and we would welcome folks' participation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrew. And again, if I think I did, but if I wasn't, I want to be really mindful that EPA has been a terrific partner with us, particularly in the community forum we had at Mebane, and Andrew and his colleagues continue to provide leadership in a way I think that's really quite significant and allows us at NAEHS to really participate in this all of government approach of addressing these important concerns.
Thanks, Trevor. Knowing that you have an important meeting on your docket, I think we can thank you for your time and the wonderful presentation. And I'm sure everyone knows your email to follow up if there are questions.
Absolutely, and again, it's a team effort. So particularly, as I mentioned, Joan, Liam, Sharon, Darlene, and Lindsay Martin as well has been really critical in this whole activity. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll start, 1 minute early here with a quick introduction to Dr. Ashlyn Quinn, who is our relatively new but incredibly brilliant climate change and health expert in the program side here at DERT. And she's going to give us an overview on what we're doing NIH-wide on climate change and health.
Thanks
Ashlyn,
so
I'll
much,
turn it over to
Ashley.
you.
Great, and let me just see if I can get my slides up. Let's see, I think you're seeing the wrong version, is that right?
Yep,
Okay, swap.
looks great.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Ashlyn Quinn. I'm a program officer in the population health branch of NIEHS. As Ashley was just saying, I joined NIEHS back in July, so I've been here just over 6 months. I was specifically brought on to work on climate change and health. So it's really my privilege to present to you today an update on this NIH-wide initiative. So I know that this was presented to council as a concept back in 2021. And since then, you've all seen little bits of activity here and there, but I think this is the first time there's been kind of a comprehensive update provided. So I wanted to just start back kind of at the beginning with a little bit of background on the initiative so that we're all on the same page. And following that, I'll move into speaking a bit more about the extramural funding that we're doing in this area of science. And here I'll focus on fiscal years 21 through 23. And I'll again be talking about some of our unsolicited grants, which are not driven by climate change and health notices of funding opportunities or our solicitations. And then I will talk about a few solicitations that we've had in this area and some partnership programs that have started. I'll then dive in specifically to the science being studied here at NIEHS. And lastly, I'll touch on some other activities outside the extramural funding portfolio. So to begin with, just a bit of background again on this, you may remember that back in 2021, President Biden issued an executive order impelling the federal agencies to have renewed focus on climate change. So with this as background, and of course, since then, we've seen with our own eyes the many ways that extreme weather events have been wreaking havoc across the United States and globally. So the NIH had a unified response to this. This is just a quote drawn from the framework document for the Climate Change and Health Initiative, saying that perhaps there's no greater opportunity for NIH to fulfill its mission than by taking a leading role in this area. So with that as background, the NIH response was to launch the NIH-wide Climate Change and Health Initiative. And this was, the strategic framework document, which can be found on our website, launched in 2022. At the same time, we also put out a NOSI, or Notice of Special Interest, and that's an announcement to the research community that we are interested in funding this area of science. For the initiative, we had the Institute and Center directors set up as NIH leaders in this arena. We also kind of re-energized a working group for climate change and health that has now over 180 staff. And this initiative has been marked by coordination across the NIH. So then the big news was in fiscal year 2023, when NIEHS received a $40 million congressional appropriation for climate change and health that was added to our base budget. So that, of course, enabled us to do much more in the space. I wanted to talk about how we're defining this area of science. So this cog diagram, which is drawn from the strategic framework document, outlines kind of the scope of science and climate and health that we're interested in at the NIH. And as you can see, it's really quite broad. So we think about climate-driven effects on health. So that could be, meteorological factors, how climate-related variables impact disease or disease outcomes. Then we have extreme weather and climate disasters. So those are things like wildfires, flooding, drought, hurricanes, and the ways that those impact health, and also the ways that we might build health resilience to what we know is going to be, an ongoing occurrence of these types of disasters. We also want to think about climate change specifically and how a changing climate impacts health. And this can be done either through observations or more and more through modeling. We also want to think about the actions that are being taken that are related to climate change. So that could be either mitigation, which is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and or adaptation, which means kind of adjusting to what we know is a changing climate. So what are the health implications of those actions? And lastly, we're interested in methods and approaches to move this science forward. Dr. Wojcik already mentioned this in his opening remarks today, but the Executive Committee of the Climate Change and Health Initiative is led by institute directors, and we have expanded that executive committee in 2023 to 11 different NIH institutes and centers. So it was 7 at the start of the year, and now we're up to 11. And these are pictures of some of the directors on the executive committee. So that's a very exciting expansion. And in terms of governance, there's also a steering committee for the NIH-wide initiative. And I've put on here on the left some of the key members kind of leading up the steering committee, and that includes the 2 steering committee chairs, who are Aubrey Miller at NIEHS and Josh Rosenthal at Fogarty International Center. And we also have Gwen Coleman, who serves as a strategic advisor to the whole initiative. The steering committee is also made up of representatives of all the other ICs participating in the executive committee. And here I've just put up the 2 representatives from NIEHS, who are Claudia Thompson and myself. So 2023 saw a lot of activity in this space. This is just kind of an infographic showing many of the things that happened over the year. And I'm going to be talking about many of these in the slides to come, so I won't call out any in particular here. I wanted to start by going over our extramural funding. So again, I'll be talking about the funding that we've made in this area of science between fiscal year 21 to 23. So kind of the main question is, has the launch of the initiative and the NAEHS that have gone out to the public, have they motivated an increase in the applications and awards that we are seeing in this area of science? So I'll start by talking about our unsolicited grant portfolio and then go on to our solicitations. And just to be a bit more clear about this, Dr. Balshaw mentioned these terms in his presentation as well, but the unsolicited grants would be applications to the NIH that come under any of the NIH parent mechanisms. So that might be R01, R21, F31, K99, any of those mechanisms we're familiar with that are not specifically responding to a notice of funding opportunity in climate change and health. That's the unsolicited portfolio. Then the solicited grants are ones that come in response to a specific climate change and health notice of funding opportunity, of which there were a few in the last couple of years. So starting with the unsolicited grants, so I want to make just a couple notes. Here we're looking only at the competing grants. So these would be ones that came in new or as renewals. And we don't include supplements in this analysis either. So here is a summary of the results. Here I've kind of graphed how many applications and awards were made in this area of science between fiscal years 2021 and 2023. So I think, the short answer to the question I posed is that yes, the launch of the initiative and putting the NAEHS out on the street really did motivate the investigator community to come in with more applications to the NIH in this area of science. So you can see that in fiscal year 2021 and 2022, we had almost a flat number of applications at 132 or 133. But then that increased quite a bit in fiscal year 2023 to 276 applications. So you can see just looking from fiscal years 22 to 23, there was over 100% growth in applications. There was also a large growth in awards, 44%, and a growth in awarded dollars that went along with that. Looking now at how those applications are divided across the NIH. So I mentioned this is an NIH-wide initiative. Nonetheless, you can see that approximately half of the fiscal year 23 applications and the awards are coming to NIEHS. So this makes sense because these areas of science with the exposures that have to do with weather and climate are something that would have traditionally been in NIEHS's portfolio anyway. But we do see that the other half of the awards are going to other institutes in the NIH, and they're actually spread among 9 other institutes. So other institutes at the NIH are really picking up interest in this area as well, which is great to see. Looking at the types of mechanisms that these awards came in at, and again, here we're focusing on fiscal year 23, you can see that, the lion's share of applications and awards were R01s. So 30% of the awards and 40% of the applications were in the R01 mechanism. R21 was second. And then, you can see the distribution of types of mechanisms after that. And there was quite a range of different mechanisms that investigators came in with in this area of science. Okay, so that was a quick look into our unsolicited grants. And then I mentioned that we did have several notices of funding opportunity that were specific to the Climate Change and Health Initiative. So I'm going to cover those now, and there are 3 of them to discuss. The first is the Alliance for Community Engagement in Climate and Health. Then we have our Climate Change and Health Research Coordinating Center, and finally our P20 Exploratory Centers. So the first one to go out was actually these ACH awards, Alliance for Community Engagement in Climate and Health. These 4 awards are made in fiscal year 22. So this is before we had the appropriation. So these were made with IC dollars. It's actually NHLBI that manages this program. And then they have continued in fiscal year 23 with part of the appropriation money. So the goals of these hubs, as they're called, are to support community engaged research and outreach on climate change. So they're to also include underserved minority and rural populations with the greatest disadvantage as pertains to the impacts of climate change. So there are 4 hubs that are funded right now, and you can see where they are. The first one in Alaska actually, made me think of some of the comments that were being made just recently to Dr. Archer's presentation, because they are working with Indigenous Alaska Natives in rural areas of Alaska who are really impacted. Of course, the Arctic is more impacted by climate change than other regions of the globe already. And these folks are really being impacted in terms of their ability to acquire food in the traditional ways that they are used to, which has impacts on their health as well as on their cultural kind of livelihoods and traditions. So that's the Alaska Center. There's also one located in Colorado called the Mountain West ACH Hub, and they're working with several different communities in Colorado who are also agricultural or immigrant communities, looking at air quality, drought, wildfires, and extreme heat. Then the 2 on the bottom are both in California, but they're dealing with very different populations. The USC-led hub is looking at the LA population and looking at the impact of heat in that urban population. Whereas the one on the right focuses on rural communities and is looking at harmful algal blooms and the air pollution and specific pathogens that are released when those become airborne and inhaled. So those are ACH centers. And then the first award we made in fiscal year 2023 was for a research coordinating center. And again, Dr. Wojcik kind of prefaced this in his talk this morning, but this award went to a team at the Boston University and Harvard, and their research coordinating center can also be known as CAFE, which is an acronym for what they are trying to achieve, which is convene, accelerate, and foster, expand a community of practice for climate change and health research. So this community of practice, mostly is focused on research and investigators, but it also includes many of their non-academic partners. It's really kind of a self-defined bottom-up community where folks can opt in to join. And as Dr. Wojcik mentioned, our first meeting of this community was actually held just last week, February 5th through 7th, and it was a fully virtual conference. You might remember that Dr. Wojcik said there were like an astounding 1,300 people who signed up for it. Of course, this was a free virtual conference, so we weren't sure how many of them would actually show up. But as it turned out, we had over 900 total attendees, which was really an astounding number. There were 72 sessions that were held over 3 virtual days. Many of the sessions were actually organized by members of the community because part of the kind of outreach for the conference was to surface ideas that the community themselves wanted to discuss. So that was really awesome. I think there were 59 of the 72 sessions that were actually initiated by community of practice members. and they were all really well attended. And I have just put here a couple pictures of some of the keynotes that occurred during that time. The first keynote had 5 different NIH IC directors giving their thoughts on climate change, how they became interested in the topic, and what it means to their institute specifically. And the second day's keynote featured Vanessa Carey, who is a WHO Special Envoy for Climate Change and Health. And she was in a fireside chat with some of the CAFE MPIs, as well as NIEHS grantee, Dr. Mary Rice. Okay, now to our P20 centers, which again have been mentioned earlier today. Let me just go forward one. So this is an effort that we have in climate change and health that's to build capacity to do research in this area. So these are exploratory centers, and we've funded the first round of these in fiscal year 2023. We made 5 awards, and we've since received a second round of applications, and that second round will be awarded later in fiscal year 2024. So these are the 5 funded centers right now. So I've tried to put as much information as I could on this slide because they're all doing really awesome work. But you can see the top 3, the ones that are, let me go back, that are headed out of Tufts, UC San Diego, and Drexel University, all have partners elsewhere in the world. And that's what's highlighted in kind of the yellow bar down at the bottom. So the Cord Center, which is the Tufts one, is working on anticipatory action. So preparing settings in the global South to be ready for the coming impacts of climate change. The UC San Diego-led center is working in Jordan, and they're specifically working on energy, food, and water. So kind of in the WASH domain, in an area where water availability can be quite tough. And then on the right, we have the Drexel Center that's working on city settings. So they're looking at equity and heat in settings that include cities in the US, Guatemala, and Brazil. And then the 2 P20s that are on the bottom have more of a domestic focus. They're working within the United States. And the one led out of Emory is looking at heat, disease burden in low-income communities in the Atlanta region. Whereas the one on the right is Scorch. They're located out of the University of Arizona, and they're looking at adaptation to heat, but looking at green space and landscape and early warning systems and that sort of thing as well. Working primarily in the Southwestern US, but with other analogies in other arid regions of the world. Okay, so those were our climate change and health notices of funding opportunity, or solicitations, but we also initiated a new partnership program with NSF in fiscal year 23 that's quite exciting. And NSF was already funding several centers that were working on disasters. So these are the University of Colorado Boulder's Natural Hazards Center and the University of Washington's Natural Hazards Reconnaissance Facility, otherwise known as RAPID. And so what the NIH partnership with the NSF was able to do was to bring the health angle to both of these centers that are otherwise focused on disasters. So for the University of Colorado Center, they're providing out some small awards to eligible grantees to get in the field quickly after disasters. And what the NIH expansion is enabling them to do is to focus on collecting perishable health data, as well as the other data that they might have been collecting. And then the rapid expansion, they actually lend out equipment to researchers who need to kind of assess certain things in the wake of disasters too. And the NIH expansion allows the complement of that program with specifically health-focused sensors and data collection instrumentation. So this is pretty exciting, I think, in terms of the interagency collaboration and the focus on disasters, building on some of NIH's prior work on disasters. So with all that included, this is now a map of the currently funded climate change and health research centers that again has just been built up over the last 2 years. So now we have 12 of these centers. You can see that the ACH ones are in blue, the P20s are in orange, with the ones that have an international component highlighted in yellow. Apologies for the working in the background. There's also a research coordinating center that's in green. And then our NSF collaboration is in beige. So we're pretty happy with this. And of course, we're excited to see it expand. The soonest will be with the next round of P20 centers that'll be funded this year. Okay, so going back to just looking at our kind of funding analysis, if we were to include these solicitations that I just described in the FY21 to 23 grant analysis, we can see that, of course, there has been a larger jump from 22 to 23 in the number of applications and awards and the budget associated with them. If we include the solicitations, then we see a 134% jump in applications across that time period and a 59% growth in awards. We've only included the first year of the multi-year funded awards here just for consistency's sake, but actually more money went out the door in FY23 than this. Okay, so how about the science? So going back to this cog diagram that I showed in the beginning, the center kind of ring of it covers 4 key elements: health effects research, health equity, training and capacity building, and intervention science. You can see that we did have awards in each of these areas in fiscal year 23. So this is pretty good. Maybe the intervention science realm is a little bit less represented than some of the others. So that's something we can kind of keep an eye on in the years to come. And then looking at the outer kind of cogs or gears that demonstrate the areas of science that are applicable to this initiative, we also had representation in fiscal year 23 in every single area, which is really gratifying to see. Again, however, there are a few areas that are perhaps a little less represented. Those include dissemination and implementation science, and then the predictive modeling piece of the epidemiology and predictive modeling cog. There, we're specifically defining it in terms of climate change, which applications looked forward at the climate change scenarios to see how disease burden or, prevalence or distribution is going to be affected according to different climate change scenarios. So that specific area of science, again, a little bit underdeveloped in relation to some of the others. So now changing to focus specifically on NAEHS, since this is NAEHS's council, I wanted to dive in and look a little bit at what aspects of science are being studied here at this institute. So these data are from our grants coding database, and they kind of are a really useful coding of grants that come into NAEHS in terms of what are the main exposures of interest, health outcomes of interest, that sort of thing. So looking at exposures first, so here we're looking at the climate change and health grants that came in, were assigned to NAEHS over the last 3 fiscal years, FY21 to 23. And you can see that some of the key exposures were air pollution, extreme weather, then multi-agent or mixtures, followed by psychosocial stress, metals, and then some other exposures down the line. Just to provide a few examples of some of our funded work in this area, here's one with PI Matthew Campen looking at contaminant metal content and wildfire smoke and neural inflammation. So that covers several of these exposures: air pollution, extreme weather, and metals. This is actually renewal, so he's been working on this area for some time. Here's another example that focuses on extreme weather, and this is actually an example of one of our SBIR small business grants. So this is to develop an interactive text messaging program for extreme weather alerts. And lastly, an RO3 was also awarded looking at the impact of prenatal exposure to climate stressors and severe maternal morbidity. So again, that gets at extreme weather, psychosocial stress, and some of those mixtures. So these are just examples. Of course, we have others to show, but just to give kind of a top level highlight here, again, looking at the health outcomes of interest in the same batch of grants. The largest category here is just kind of general morbidity and mortality, but that's followed by respiratory outcomes, birth outcomes, neurological, cardiovascular, reproductive, metabolic, and kidney disease. So again, a couple examples. Here's an R21 looking at wildfire smoke exposure in pregnancy and risk of structural birth defects. Kidney disease, especially having to do with kind of chronic kidney disease of uncertain origin, is something that is thought to be impacted by ambient heat and heat exposure, especially among exposed workers. So some grants we have are focusing on this, this area of science, particularly in Latin America and Africa. And here's another one that I pulled out that's looking at temperature morbidity associations. So it gets to that kind of general morbidity category as well as respiratory and cardiovascular outcomes. And I specifically highlighted this one because it's also looking at advancing methods that are used to analyze these associations. So again, that's just a snapshot. We have many other grants looking at these other types of outcomes in the portfolio, as you can imagine. But now, I've so far just focused on the extramural activities. I wanted to finish this talk by touching on some of the other initiative activities that have happened. So this covers our work in the intramural research program, as well as our climate scholars, some data work, and then resources that have been developed for the public. So Dr. Wojcik already mentioned the intramural research program, so I won't talk too much about it, but it has 3 prongs. So the first is the Intramural Targeted Climate Change and Health program, otherwise known as ITCH. And here are the first 2 cohorts of investigators at the NIH who have been funded to work in climate change and health, and a 3rd cohort is on the way. And the other 2 prongs are building infrastructure for the intramural research program and also building out this intramural center for climate change and health research. And this is just a renewed plea to council to please, let us know if you know of anyone who might be interested in taking on this important responsibility. We'd be looking for candidates very soon. For training and capacity building, we have the NIH Climate and Health Scholars Program. So Dr. Archer mentioned that the EJ Scholars Program is going to be modeled on this one because it has been really quite successful. We've had 2 cohorts of extramural investigators. So these are folks not at the NIH, they're in outside institutions who've been brought on to have kind of these part-time affiliations with the NIH. So during their time, they work on some kind of climate change and health related project with their host institution or their host institute at the NIH, I should say. And they also share their expertise and their area of science with the NIH, which has been really useful. We have a webinar series that features them and their work, as well as other investigators, and that's been a great way to expand our capacity within the NIH in this realm. So we've had 2 cohorts so far. The left-hand one was here last year, and then the ones on the right are here currently. We've also developed a number of resources for the public. So this includes the literature portal, where you can see the website here that has a list of literature related to climate change and health. We then have a glossary of terms and definitions, and also the DR2 portal, which focuses on disasters and builds out of former research or former work that NIH has done in the disaster area. And that contains questionnaires, surveys, protocols, all kinds of types of instruments that may be needed to do research in the wake of a disaster. Then we have this program called CORDS, which specifically is trying to work on the data integration issues that exist in this field. So one of the issues is that climate data and health data are not always well integrated, and to do research, you really need them to be so that you can understand how the associations between climate-related variables are correlated with health, and go into a lot of other research questions as well. So this is this CORDS project started in March 2023, and actually we received funding from Health and Human Services Peak Portif project for this, and that's the Patient-Centered Outcomes Consortium or project. And so this is a collaborative group of researchers at the NIH and beyond who are trying to kind of do an initial foray into integrating climate and health data, and they will be using wildfires as a case study for the application of this integration. So that was a lot, I know, but a lot has happened over the last couple of years. I also wanted to just give a brief preview of what's coming up this fiscal year. So we have been working on relaunching the NIH Climate Change and Health Initiatives website. That's actively underway, and you can look forward to seeing that new website in summer. As I mentioned before, we'll have a new round of awards for the P20 centers. So that'll be happening later this year also. We always are having more unsolicited applications to the R1 and other kind of mechanisms. So those are going to be coming in. The folks at the NIH are also going to be present at meetings, including, I just put on a couple here, but there's a European Commission Climate Change and Health Conference happening in Brussels this month. We'll also be at ISEE and many other public forums. And then we'll just keep working with our 180-person working group, our interagency collaborations with other federal agencies, and much more. I wanted to make sure to thank everyone, and there are a lot of people at the NIH who have really contributed to this initiative. So I mentioned that I'm really rather new. Before I got here, Claudia Thompson and A.B. Boyles were the two people who were really taking on the bulk of the climate change and health work here at NIEHS. And in particular, I've learned a huge amount from A.B., and she continues to really be involved, particularly with the P20 centers. Then our program analysis branch, including Christy Drew, Christy Pettibone, and Mbeja Lamote, have really been helpful in providing the kind of portfolio analysis that I was able to show you today. And we wouldn't be able to do our jobs without scientific review and grants management. And I've highlighted Linda Bass, Leroy Worth, and Jenny Greer here, but their teams have all been really all focused on this too. It's such a big initiative that covers so many people at NIEHS. We're lucky to have a lot of really great contractors who work with us. So from MDB and from Avanti, we also work closely with the NIEHS Scope office. And then the leaders, again, kind of pushing all this forward some of them are shown here. So that includes Dr. Rick Wojcik, Gwen Coleman, Aubrey Miller, and Josh Rosenthal. And then I also want to just express my thanks to everyone, especially in DIRT, who really made this initiative come to life. And that's something that happened before I got to NIEHS. But so much appreciation to everyone who has made this initiative possible and continues to kind of give it life and productivity. That's all I have. I just wanted to end with a couple websites that you might refer to if you have more questions. So one is our overall website. Then there's our research coordinating center known as CAFE. They have their own website that you can check out there. And lastly, just to promote our public seminar series, we have an ongoing series of really great webinars in this area, and they're all publicly available. You can sign up for them. It'd be great to see you there. So that's all. I'll end here and take any questions.
Thanks, Ashlyn. You're right. That was a ton of information in a short amount of time. And I think you presented what is a very confusing set of science clearly. So thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Ashlyn? Trevor?
Oh, hi, Ashlyn. I really enjoyed your presentation. So you may not know this, but I lead an inter-center working group made up of the P30 centers, environmental health core centers on climate change and human health. And we meet once a month, but it'd be great if you could come and talk to that group and give a very similar presentation to what you just gave, because I'm not sure if everyone in the P30 center program is aware of all of these initiatives, and will get their thought process moving forward. So,
oh, thank you. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, that'd be a great opportunity.
I sent you an email as an invite.
Perfect.
We have talks set up for March, April, and May, but maybe we can give you a special promotion.
Whatever works best for the group. But yes, I'd be happy to do that. And thank you for thinking of it.
And the other thought I had was, I noticed in your intramural group, you're putting some emphasis into topics we had discussed earlier in the council, and they were really related to using electronic health records to try and get some information on exposure data. You have biosensors and perhaps biowearables. And I think this is a really important topic area, because you can start thinking about doing association studies between people's exposures, emergency room visits, prescription data to determine what kind of disorder they're presenting with, how severe it was, and so on. So I think this is a really important initiative to bring that into fold.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I think across the initiative, it's really well recognized that data integration is something that's, highly needed. And it's definitely something that relates to topics that have come up earlier in the discussion, including the exposome. How do we get all this information kind of into one place so that we can actually use it for good? So there are a lot of, I think, parallels between what we're trying to do here and other aspects of the work at NIEHS. You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Looks like Daryl has his hand up. Go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, no, I just wanted to also thank Ashlyn for that very comprehensive presentation, and just want to remind us that you brought out that lower left quadrant with regard to areas that need to be embellished, fortified, grown at NAEHS. Certainly, our friends at EPA have demonstrated that the implementation science, mitigation strategies, right, interventions are what will move the needle with regard to policy change in our local municipalities. And as climate change continues and comes to the forefront, those vulnerable and environmental justice populations will be still the most adversely impacted along those lines. And so that goes with the mission of the Institute, and I look forward to being in those discussions. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Dr. Hood. Yeah, I think especially where climate change is concerned, the need to act is at the forefront of everyone's thoughts. So, just doing research on associations, while important, is not enough, right? We need to be able to figure out what we can do to protect health, given a changing climate. So that and community engagement, surfacing the ideas from communities of what they need, and how we can best serve them. Those are ideas that really have guided a lot of aspects of this initiative, as they have other aspects of work at NAEHS.
Thanks, Daryl. And thanks, Ashlyn. I just want to say I've been at, oh gosh, I don't know. I think David listed all of the ICs I've been at. I've been at a few. And one of the things that I think makes NAEHS so special is really the engagement with the community. I mean, other institutes certainly have it in their mission intro, but my goodness, I mean, a lot of our science here is really driven by that. And I think it will continue to be. I saw that Rick had to sign off. So if there are no other questions for Ashlyn, I will turn it back over to David. And thank you, Ashlyn.
Just want to make sure that there are no additional questions for Ashlyn. We do have a little bit of time on our agenda still, but we can also end 10 minutes early. So I would like to thank Ashlyn and Trevor in particular for their really stunning presentations this morning, and all of our speakers yesterday. Council members, thank you all for your participation in the meeting over the last 2 days. I do want to give some reminders on our upcoming meetings. So our next meeting will be June 4th and 5th, 2024. We will have Rob Bell available, so are encouraging council members and staff to come and participate in that meeting in person. We will still have the Zoom as an option for people who can't travel, but we're going to encourage in-person participation in the June meeting. Our next meeting after that will be September 11th and 12th. Unfortunately, the Rod Bell Auditorium, where we normally hold council, is going to be offline for AV upgrades during September. So that meeting is going to be in a purely virtual format as this one was. And then our next meeting after that will be almost a little over a year from now, February 18th to 19th, 2025. And in keeping with our new practice, we will be planning that meeting to be a strictly virtual online council meeting. With that, I will use my powers as acting chair to adjourn the meeting, and we'll bang the imaginary gavel, and thank you all for your participation, and we'll see you in June.